Hey, it's Jeremy from OpticHouse.com. So I am finally getting down to working on thumbnails for issue 5 of Morningstar. All the rewriting that I've been doing of the last half of the series, I've got the all 4 of the final issues pretty much locked down to where I'm very, very happy with them, and I feel like the time I spent was well worth it. Anyway, I am working on thumbnails right now of the cover for issue 5, and the cover I'm doing is actually, it's turning out, I decided to morph it into an homage to Frank Frazetta's famous Death Dealer painting. The image has Gabrielle, as I have each of I'm trying to do one Archangel as a feature for each cover, and on this one it's Gabrielle, and she's riding along with a bunch of severed demon heads tied to her saddlebags. And, I don't feel like the Death Dealer thing is a cheap ripoff, because when I originally started sketching it, I started with the idea of Gabrielle and the demon heads hanging from her bag first. And just in my mind, the way I saw it, the tone, kind of the dark coloring, and the way that I expected her to look, it felt like it had a lot of the emotional themes that are in Frazetta's painting. And I thought, instead of steering away from those, why not steer into them? So I'm not doing the exact pose as the Death Dealer painting. You can see in the bottom corner, I'm actually looking at it for reference while I'm doing this. And the Death Dealer painting is much more of a profile shot, whereas in this one I'm going to have Gabrielle riding towards you. And I'm also thinking of more of a cooler color palette instead of the warm brown tones that are in Frazetta's. But, that said, I think I'm still emotionally going for that spirit. And I'm doing this also, I started by doing little landscape thumbnails. Part of the point of doing that is to try and work out the perspective and the sense of environment that's just going to be set into. Because even though I'm going to have smoke and atmosphere around it, it's part of my ongoing battle to make my pieces feel more grounded in the sense of making the characters feel like they're existing in an environment and not just standing in front of a backdrop like a theatrical play. So, that's a little step that I'm taking. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's part of using all different new tools or new ideas of approaching pieces, that you try it in a few different ways and see where it works, where it doesn't. And that's how you learn where it is effective and how to properly use it. And, the past few issues, I've been using brushes to do my thumbnails. As you can see here, part of this is that it's for helping me develop some brush control. I think that the brush when you're working in comics, it can be a fussy and difficult tool to get it to do what you want. It takes a lot of practice, and I think a lot of times you just start using it and you get frustrated because you're not getting results. At least when I started using it for many years, I wasn't getting the results I wanted, and every few years I would try to use it and then give up. The brush that I'm using a 00 brush that I got at Dick Blick. And it's just, not a particularly expensive. It was like a $2 brush. Maybe it was like $1 or $2. And I'm using a Speedball India ink. And for a lot of these, another tip that I got from a fellow artist in one of my figure drawing classes, a guy named Gregor, he gave me a great tip years ago, which is very true, which is, if you want to increase your brush control and your skill with it, is to try lettering with a brush also. Not necessarily lettering, like lettering a whole comic, but just writing with a brush. And I can agree that that's definitely true, because as I do a lot of these thumbnails, part of it is that I try not to get too caught up in the details. This is really more of a notation, so that to make sure that I have the elements that I want to be in the final drawing to be present. And in the process of doing that, I frequently will do a lot of writing, just alongside the image, describing exactly what I'm doing, or if there's something that I didn't quite nail in the thumbnail, but I don't want to sit there and belabor it and really work the drawing over. I'll just write, do this instead of that, make sure to emphasize this. Or sometimes it's just to describe what the actual image is. Because a lot of times these thumbnails will be almost indecipherable messes. They're very small drawings, and I put in sometimes a lot of elements in each panel. So I have to go in there and write descriptive text to tell me what it is. And in doing that, I'm also writing that with the ink, with the brush. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to try and letter a comic book by hand with a brush, but I think that my penmanship's pretty rocky in general. But I do feel like I've been doing it, with these past few issues enough that if I had to letter a comic book with a brush, I could, and it would be readable. So, again, it's a tip that another artist gave to me, and I'm passing on to you. Give it a try. If you're struggling with inking with a brush, get a really small brush and make some notes along with the things that you're drawing. That's not a bad way to go. One of the things I think about a lot when I'm doing these thumbnails, or at least when I think about the process that I've been doing in terms of trying to grow and develop my skill with it, is that, when you try to do a finished piece, any finished illustration you're doing with a tool that you haven't mastered yet, it's challenging. And that's the beauty of doing these thumbnails, is that no one expects your thumbnails to look pretty. No one expects them to look beautiful. When you do a finished thing, you'll get frustrated, but no one's going to criticize you for having sloppy thumbnails if you're foolish enough to show them to anyone like I am. So it's a great way to build that muscle control and to learn how to get the lines that you want, to get the thick and thin that you want to get, to figure out how wet or how dry your brush needs to be while you work, how much water you need to add to get your ink to flow properly. These are all things that other artists can tell you, do this or do that, give you a formula or a process to work through. But all of those processes and formulas and things that they may tell you really mean nothing until you sit down and you work with the tool yourself. You need to see what it feels like in your hands when you're working and getting it to respond the way that you want to, and seeing the ways in which it doesn't respond, and how to either use the way it is working or how to get it to do what it is that you want it to do. That's it for now. Check out my website, optichouse.com. If you enjoy these videos, please share them. Also, sign up for my weekly newsletter to get a free digital download and see what else I'm working on. Go be creative.